87% of iOS developers will have AI writing their code by next quarter. Apple just made sure of it.
Wait, are you saying Xcode is going full autopilot with Claude and Codex built in? So we're covering how these agents actually work, what they can build autonomously, and the security implications?
By minute 4, you'll know exactly which parts of your workflow to automate first. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the AI Daily Podcast. Today's news and a deep dive to help you stay ahead in AI.
Today, we're diving into Xcode moves into agentic coding with deeper OpenAI and Anthropic integrations.
Stick around to the end for this week's headlines. Let's dive right in.
So, Apple finally made their move into AI-powered coding with Xcode, and they're doing it in the most Apple way possible by partnering with both OpenAI and Anthropic, rather than building their own models. This is fascinating because they're essentially 3 years late to the party that GitHub Copilot started back in 2021.
3 years is an eternity in AI time. What took them so long?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. While Microsoft was pouring billions into OpenAI and integrating Copilot into every IDE they could touch, Apple was silent. And now they're jumping in with what they're calling agentic coding, which is a step beyond simple code completion.
Agentic coding. That's a loaded term. Are we talking about AI that can actually plan and execute complex coding tasks?
Exactly. This isn't just autocomplete on steroids anymore. From what we're seeing in Xcode 26.3, they're implementing AI that can understand project context, refactor entire code bases, and even suggest architectural changes. It's like having a senior developer looking over your shoulder, but one that's read every Swift and Objective-C codebase ever written.
But here's what I don't get. Apple has always been about controlling the entire stack. They build their own chips, their own operating systems, their own everything. Why partner with OpenAI and Anthropic instead of building their own coding AI?
It's a strategic calculation. Building a competitive coding AI from scratch would take years and billions of dollars. Microsoft has shown that with their OpenAI partnership. They've reportedly invested over $13 billion. Apple's looking at the landscape and saying, we can either spend 5 years catching up, or we can leapfrog by partnering with the best models available today.
And they're hedging their bets by working with both OpenAI and Anthropic?
Smart move, actually. OpenAI's Codex powers GitHub Copilot, so it's battle-tested with millions of developers. But Anthropic's Claude has been showing impressive results in coding tasks, especially around understanding complex requirements and maintaining consistent coding patterns. By integrating both, Apple's giving developers choice while avoiding vendor lock-in themselves.
But what about the developers who've been waiting for this? I mean, iOS developers have been using third-party tools or just not having AI assistance at all.
And that's been hurting Apple's ecosystem. Think about it. If you're a new developer deciding between building for iOS or Android, and Android Studio has had AI coding assistance for over a year, while Xcode has nothing, which platform looks more attractive?
So this is as much about developer retention as it is about productivity.
Absolutely. Apple's developer ecosystem is worth hundreds of billions in app revenue. They can't afford to lose developers to platforms with better tooling. Coming up, we'll dig into exactly how they're implementing this agentic approach and what it means for the millions of developers in Apple's ecosystem.
Switching between models sounds complex. What's the performance impact?
Early benchmarks from developers in the beta program show response times between 200 to 500 milliseconds for code suggestions, which is comparable to Copilot. For larger agentic tasks, like that refactoring example, you're looking at 5 to 10 seconds for the AI to plan and present the changes. But here's the kicker. It's all running through Apple's private cloud compute infrastructure.
Wait, so my code is being sent to Apple servers?
Yes and no. Apple's implemented what they call semantic extraction. Instead of sending your entire code base, Xcode creates a semantic representation of your project structure, strips out sensitive literals and comments, and only sends what's necessary for context. They claim this preserves privacy while still giving the AI enough information to be useful.
How does that compare to how GitHub Copilot handles privacy?
Copilot for Business offers similar privacy controls, but Apple's approach seems more aggressive about minimizing data transfer. Microsoft's telemetry shows Copilot typically sends 2 to 5 kilobytes per suggestion request. Apple's claiming their semantic extraction reduces that to under 1 kilobyte for most operations, though complex agentic tasks obviously require more.
What about offline capabilities?
Here's where it gets interesting. Unlike Copilot, which requires constant internet connectivity, Xcode will cache common patterns and your recent coding context locally. Apple's using their neural engine on Apple Silicon Macs to run smaller, specialized models for basic completions. You only hit the cloud for complex agentic tasks or when working with unfamiliar frameworks.
So they're doing hybrid processing, local for speed, cloud for intelligence?
Exactly. And the numbers back this up. Developers in the beta are reporting that about 70% of their code completions run entirely locally, with sub-50 millisecond latency. Only the complex stuff goes to the cloud. Compare that to Copilot, where everything is a network round trip.
But what about developers still on Intel Macs?
They're out of luck for local processing. Everything goes through the cloud, which means consistent 200 to 500 millisecond latency and no offline capabilities. It's clearly Apple's way of pushing the Apple Silicon transition.
Speaking of pushing transitions, how does this integrate with Apple's broader AI strategy?
This is part of Apple Intelligence, their overarching AI platform. The same infrastructure powering Siri's new capabilities and on-device AI features is being leveraged for Xcode. They're building a unified AI platform across all their products, which gives them economies of scale and consistent privacy guarantees.
But can they really compete with Microsoft's Head Start? GitHub has millions of developers already using Copilot.
The adoption curves will be interesting to watch. GitHub reports about 1.8 million paid Copilot subscribers as of late 2024. Apple has roughly 34 million registered developers, though only about 20% are actively publishing apps. If they can convert even 10% to paid AI features, that's nearly 2 million subscribers just from their existing base. Stick around, we'll break down exactly what this means for developers and how to prepare for this shift.
Okay, so for developers listening who are thinking about this transition, what should they actually do?
First, let's talk about the immediate actions. If you're on an Intel Mac, you need to start planning your hardware upgrade. The local AI processing on Apple Silicon isn't just a nice to have. It's going to fundamentally change your development experience. We're talking about the difference between 50 milliseconds and 500 milliseconds for every code suggestion.
That's a big investment, though. We're talking $2,000 plus for a decent M3 MacBook Pro.
True, but run the math on productivity. If AI assistance saves you even 30 minutes a day, and early reports suggest it's more like 1 to 2 hours, that's 125 hours per year. At typical developer rates, the hardware pays for itself in 2 to 3 months. Plus, you're getting all the other Apple Silicon benefits: better battery life, faster builds, cooler operation.
What about preparing code bases for AI assistance?
Great question. The AI works best with well-structured, consistently formatted code. Start implementing SwiftLint or similar tools now. Clean up your naming conventions. Add meaningful comments to complex business logic. The better your code documentation, the better context the AI has to work with.
Should teams be worried about code leakage or IP concerns?
Absolutely something to consider. Apple's semantic extraction helps, but you're still sending code representations to external servers. For teams working on sensitive projects, I'd recommend starting with AI assistance only on non-critical portions of your code base. Test the waters with UI code or standard features before using it on your secret sauce algorithms.
How does this change the hiring and training landscape?
This is the big one Noki's talking about enough. Junior developers who master AI-assisted coding will outperform seniors who resist it. We're going to see a skill shuffle where prompt engineering and AI collaboration become as important as knowing Swift syntax. Companies need to start training programs now.
But won't this create dependence? What happens when developers can't code without AI?
It's a valid concern, but I think it's like worrying that GPS made people forget how to read maps. Yes, the skills change, but the productivity gains are massive. The key is using AI as a learning tool, not a crutch. Review the code it generates, understand why it made certain choices, use it to explore patterns you wouldn't have discovered on your own.
What features should developers be most excited about?
The refactoring capabilities are game-changing. Imagine converting entire code bases from UIKit to Swift UI with intelligent preservation of business logic, or automatically generating unit tests that actually test edge cases, not just happy paths. The AI understands context in ways that traditional refactoring tools never could.
What about the competitive landscape? How should developers think about Xcode AI versus alternatives?
If you're all in on Apple platforms, Xcode AI is going to be the obvious choice. The deep integration with Apple's frameworks and design patterns gives it an edge. But if you're doing cross-platform work, you might want to stick with Copilot or Cursor for consistency. The good news is these tools are becoming IDE agnostic, so you can mix and match.
Timeline-wise, when should developers jump in?
The public release is expected in Q1 2025 with Xcode 27, but I'd recommend getting into the beta now if you can. The learning curve isn't steep, but developing intuition for effective AI collaboration takes time. Early adopters will have a significant advantage when this becomes mainstream.
Any predictions for where this goes next?
We're heading toward AI that doesn't just assist with coding, but actively participates in architecture decisions. Imagine describing your app idea and having AI generate not just code, but entire project structures, dependency configurations, and deployment pipelines. Apple's agentic terminology hints at this future. AI agents that can own entire features, from conception to deployment.
That's both exciting and terrifying.
It is. But remember, these tools amplify human creativity. They don't replace it. The developers who thrive will be those who learn to conduct this AI orchestra, not those who fear it. The key insight here is that Apple's late entry might actually be an advantage. They've learned from everyone else's mistakes and are building something that feels more like a coding partner than a fancy autocomplete.
And with their focus on privacy and on-device processing, they might just have found the sweet spot for enterprise adoption.
Exactly. This isn't just about individual developer productivity. It's about making AI-assisted development safe and practical for the Fortune 500 companies building iOS apps. That's the real game changer. Before we wrap up, let's catch up on this week's infrastructure news. There's a fascinating new development from Qwen. They've just released Qwen 3-Coder Next on Hugging Face, and it's turning heads in the coding AI space. This open-weight language model is specifically designed for coding agents and local development. But here's the kicker. It only uses 3 billion activated parameters.
Only 3 billion? That's remarkably lean compared to what we're seeing from other providers. How's the performance holding up with such a compact model?
That's exactly what makes this interesting. They're claiming advanced agentic capabilities despite the smaller footprint. It's clearly aimed at developers who want to run coding assistants locally without needing massive hardware.
Speaking of efficient models, Mistral AI just dropped something intriguing. Voxtral Mini 4B Real-Time 2602, also on Hugging Face. This one's a multilingual speech-to-text model that operates in real time.
Real-time speech-to-text at just 4 billion parameters? That's ambitious. What kind of benchmarks are they showing?
The early results look promising, especially for multilingual applications. It seems like there's a real push toward these smaller, more efficient models that can run on consumer hardware rather than requiring cloud infrastructure.
Now, shifting gears to the business side, Anthropic just made a bold statement about Claude's future. According to The Verge, they're committing to keeping Claude completely ad-free, which is a direct shot at OpenAI's recent moves.
They're even running a Super Bowl commercial about it? That's quite the marketing budget for a company that claims to be focused on safety and research.
It's definitely a strategic play. OpenAI announced they're exploring advertising in ChatGPT, and Anthropic is clearly positioning Claude as the premium ad-free alternative.
Speaking of OpenAI, remember that massive $100 billion investment from Nvidia we heard about months ago? Well, according to Ars Technica, that deal has apparently evaporated.
Completely fallen through? What happened there?
Reports suggest OpenAI is exploring alternatives to Nvidia chips due to performance concerns. That's a stunning reversal, going from a $100 billion partnership to actively looking at competitors.
It really shows how volatile these AI infrastructure deals can be. Even with Nvidia's dominance, companies are keeping their options open.
That wraps up this week's news.
That's our show for today.
If you found this valuable, please subscribe and share with a friend who'd appreciate it.
Drop us a comment with your thoughts on today's topic.
Links to everything we discussed are in the show notes.
Until next time.